Hi, everybody. Welcome to the session. My name's Dan Jenkins. I'm Commercial Director here at Waggated Digital. I'm joined by my colleague Bex, who's our
Morning.
Digital
Afternoon.
Transformation Manager. Indeed. Good morning if you're joining from the East Coast of America, or maybe even the West Coast if you're up super early. And yeah, good afternoon if you're here in the UK and Europe. So super excited about this session. It's going to be a short, sharp session. I'm going to try and keep the mainstay of the content to around 30 minutes, but we will run over a little bit at the end for questions. So if you've got any pressing questions or things that you'd like to discuss throughout the session, please don't hesitate to do that. We always encourage questions in the chat. Bex is going to be managing the chat for me today as well and supporting me on this call, which is super useful. And we'll be able to kind of field your questions. And obviously, Bex is a HubSpot expert here at Waggated Digital, so we'll be going through some of those as well. Do feel free to pop your messages over to us privately if you don't want it to be like public or your brand to be visible, which is absolutely fine, and we can sort of field that in a slightly different manner. We will be recording the session, but please rest assured the focus will be on the speakers as opposed to on you as attendees. We'll make sure that you get a full copy of the recording. You'll also get a full copy of the deck after the session. So yeah, if you do miss anything, then we will be sure to follow up with that as well. I think that's about it for now. Do feel free to keep your camera on if you like. It's always lovely to see you in the room, but obviously if you're multitasking or you'd rather have your camera off, totally understand, and that is not a problem at all. So without further ado, let's crack on. So HubSpot's annual global conference, Inbound 2025. Here's your roundup. I am back. I think I've beaten jet lag from San Francisco. I am full of coffee and sleeping at relatively decent UK times. So that's a positive thing before we dive into this session. Very
Not at
quickly.
all overexcited.
Yeah, not at all, just like buzzing off coffee and fresh ideas, but it's all good. So yeah, very quickly, as a digital agency, if you're not familiar with us, we've been making the complex simple since 2011. We're an award-winning digital marketing agency. We've got offices in London, St Albans and Cheltenham, everything you need in one place. We have a wide range of international clients and a team with expert in-depth knowledge. We are HubSpot partners and super exciting to be sharing this session, which, although it comes from HubSpot, is going to be blowing the lid off a number of innovative new ideas and solutions surrounding SEO, answer engine optimization, sales and marketing alignment, and more. So we're going to dive straight in. If you want to find out more about our services, if you're not familiar with us as an agency, we'll make sure that you get all of that in the follow-up, and you can dive in and find out a bit more about who we are and what it is that we do. So we're going to look at some top marketing and sales trends from Inbound. We're then going to go through some actionable insights from industry leaders and keynote speakers. We're going to talk through HubSpot's key product launches and updates. And yes, there were 200, which is a lot, but don't worry, I'm not going to spend a minute going through each one. We'll be here all day, but I guaranteed I could talk for an hour on any one thing that we're going to go through in this next 30-minute session. We're going to look at how you can apply new ideas to your 25-26 strategy, and obviously our predictions for what's coming next as well. So let's dive into some of the key trends from Inbound. First things first, HubSpot has gone through a little bit of a rebrand. It's got a new look and feel. So if you've woken up one morning in the last week and suddenly you think some fonts look a bit different, some color palettes have evolved, and even some product names have changed slightly, yeah, rest assured, it's all part of a natural evolution. It's fresh, it's bold, it's forward thinking, it's built for that AI generational shift. And ultimately, HubSpot is really positioning itself as the go-to AI sales and marketing resource for the future. It's all about transforming scattered data into a single source of truth, and it is doing that more powerfully than ever before. Welcome if you just joined. You will get a full copy of the recording afterwards as well. So what's the main takeaway? Well, ultimately, it's all been about AI, simplicity, and customer relevance. Those are the big themes that came out of the conference this year. If you're not familiar with it already, this is something called the flywheel. This is a model that we've talked about a lot, and it makes logical sense. It's similar to a lot of typical kind of funnel type models like AIDA, but it was all about kind of attracting, engaging, and delighting. And at the heart of it all was growth. And this was a model that obviously HubSpot championed and very successfully. And it makes total sense in terms of the more you put into that cycle, the more you get out of it. But the modern marketing playbook is changing. It's changing exponentially. And so during the conference, HubSpot launched its brand new playbook in the Loop. And we love this. So the guys our end have already started to look at this. It's the way that we were starting to work. It's the way that marketing teams are evolving, but it helps give clarity and structure to how we can evolve with what is this changing landscape, and particularly around AI and the evolving landscape for marketing teams. So basically, this is a brand new marketing framework. It replaces those more static kind of linear funnel models, and it's a continuous cycle of feedback, learning, and engagement. And it's called a loop. So I'm going to quickly sort of open the door to the four aspects of the loop and how they work together, and how you could start to adopt this type of framework for your marketing activity. So the first step of the loop is all about express. It's about expressing. You define your taste, your tone, your point of view before you even bring in AI. So the key to all of this is that it's about the human element first, AI second. And as marketers, we love that, right? Because AI is all about amplifying what we do, not replacing it. So the first step of the loop model is about your brand identity, that deep customer understanding, using things like Breeze Assistant and HubSpot connectors for ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini, if you're HubSpot users, to analyze your high-value customers and create a brand style guide that speaks to them, and then bring it to life within Marketing Studio, which is a new update, giving campaigns and ideas. So again, irrespective of whether you're using HubSpot, if you're considering HubSpot, or if you're not using HubSpot at all, it's the fact that first things first in the loop model, you express, and that's very much a human-led part of the loop. Point number two is all about tailoring, and that's where we start to use AI to make messaging personal, contextual, it's relevant at scale. It's about leveraging unified customer data, everything from CRM records to call transcripts to website behavior through a smart CRM. And then using Marketing Hub features to tailor landing pages, AI-powered email, everything being personalized. So whatever you're doing, you start to tailor using AI to help with that. Then comes amplify, okay? U to the power of AI. And this is a phrase that I'm going to touch upon a few times in this session. So that's where you can start to use AI to amplify your content. You know, the modern marketing manager is going to create 10 assets in the same amount of time that maybe previously they would have created one. It's about showing up not just where your buyers spend time, but where AI provides answers as well. AEO, answer engine optimization, is going to be key moving forward, and this is something that I'll come on to in a moment. But point number three is about amplification of what we're doing as marketers. And then four is evolve. We iterate quickly and effectively with AI. Instead of 6 months campaign, we measure, predict, and adapt in real time. The most important thing about this loop model is it's a loop, is that it's never ending. It's not a funnel. We're not talking about kind of AIDA, attention, interest, desire, awareness, interest, desire, action. We're talking about this constant evolution model. Customers, individuals, people are getting met with more content from brands in a more disjointed way than ever before across social media channels, third-party content platforms, the own brand's website, email marketing. It's feeling much, much less like a funnel and more like a loop. And so we need to start evolving as marketers and start thinking that way as well. So this playbook, as I say, it was released literally in the last few days, and already we're looking at how we can use it to evolve as marketers. If you want to find out more, get some early access to those loop resources, there's a link in there where you can do that. But yeah, this is the modern marketers playbook, and we love it. So what was another key theme that, apologies, I'm just going to exit that came out of Inbound? The traffic apocalypse. It sounds dramatic. It sounds significant. Truthfully, though, things are changing. Search is changing. Search is evolving. And we're moving into this phase of zero-click search. So SEO strategies need to change. They need to adapt. And we're working in that way. So, you know, a recent report demonstrated that around 60% of Google searches end without a click. And we've got the rise of answer engine optimization, AEO. So I'm not just talking about those rich snippets that you now see on Google search as well, in terms of AI search and where Google is feeding information on Google search results before we even click through to a website. I'm talking about two-way answer engine search through large language models. So consumers are going more and more now to Claude, to ChatGPT, to Grok, and they're asking questions, and they're getting into these two-way conversations. It's still incredibly early days for that. And we've seen in the last couple of months a degree of traffic drop off for a lot of brands, which is representative of that evolving search habit. Welcome to those that are just joining. You will get a full copy of the recording afterwards. But we're now seeing more and more at scale people moving to answer engines. Now, interestingly, though, we shouldn't panic about that. We just need to adapt to that. We need to start optimizing for answer engines, and I'll touch upon that in a bit more depth. But one interesting fact to note is that conversions from AEO are already starting to prove, so from answer engines, 3 times more likely than from traditional search channels, which is super interesting. So people are engaging in a different way, they're getting their answers from engines, and then they're more likely to be further down the funnel and move through to a conversion. So we have to start considering that in terms of our entire content play, our UX, our marketing models, in that this is a natural evolution, and zero click search is a thing. So we're seeing now this shifting kind of demand channels, sort of where audiences are moving, the need for that one-to-one relevance at scale. Now, and AI enables us to do that. So previously, good sort of personalized email communications would have been to effectively, I don't know, replace somebody's name in an email so that instead of dear customer, we have dear Dan, dear Sarah, dear John, whatever. It's now becoming that that's not enough. With tools and baked in AI and some of the new functionality within HubSpot, we're able to do things like crawl customer previous communications, crawl meeting notes, get insights so that personalized emails, AI can amplify the level of personalization. And we can start to give more and more that one-to-one experience rather than the one-to-many experience. So again, it really is changing in terms of that ability and how you kind of get that relevance at scale and that one-to-one communications. I know I'm flying through this. As I say, we've got 30 minutes, and we're going to gauge some appetite for some of these areas at the end of the session, because then we'll look to do a couple of focus sessions in some of these key areas, dive even further into the loop, for example. So there's obviously a huge amount of information, some seriously strong insights from industry leaders. One thing that I want to touch upon was Dharmesh Shah's talk. Dharmesh is a co-founder at HubSpot and CTO, and very much around you to the power of AI. I touched upon that phrase earlier that's been coined here by Dharmesh, but it's very much focused on AI for amplification. And we are seriously starting to move into what is an agentic future of AI. So what does that mean? It means agents. It means agents, digital agents that support us with our day-to-day tasks, that amplify our capabilities, that turn marketing teams of 2 into marketing teams of 10, marketing teams of 10 into marketing teams of 20. You get the idea. But this is something that we need to start learning about, start understanding. And my sense is that it can start to feel quite overwhelming for a lot of marketing managers and marketing experts, because things are seriously moving at a pace. It was about a year ago that, a lot of agents were starting to get launched into the marketplace. And a year on, we're talking about it being the decade of agents. So the good news is that we're still very much in the early stages of this type of adoption. And I don't think anybody's expecting to have the answers to this overnight. We're all learning. We're all learning day to day. So what are we looking at? Well, we're looking at these human and agent partnerships. So for example, within HubSpot, we have what's called agentic AI, which is where you have these agents, these focused agents to support as a confidant, a partner, an associate in certain areas that you might be doing across the CRM. A shift from Google to TikTok and ChatGPT as AI is supporting human work, not replacing it, and practical applications as well in marketing and sales. As I say, if you're new to agents, or you're starting to use agents, or you're considering agents, how that actually works with you is still to be discovered, is still to be found out. And I appreciate that you're not going to get there overnight. But yeah, again, we'd love to know, maybe pop something in the chat, or feel free to jump in at the end if you're starting to use agents and how you're finding that partnership. So what were some of the key industry takeaways then that were discussed? Well, because of AI, because of the changing way in which consumers are digesting content, and because of what people know is now accessible and available to them, the challenge for us as marketers is that personalization is now an expectation. It's not an option. And that brings with it a degree of raising of the bar, if you see what I mean. So more and more customers are expecting a personalized experience. They're expecting a one-to-one experience. They're expecting to be able to engage with chatbots, sorry, to receive timely email communications. And this is not necessarily new in terms of the expectation for personalization. So it's really interesting, several years ago, when social media ads and meta ads, Facebook ads, as were then called more specifically, were becoming more and more personalized, there was a movement where at one point they basically stopped the personalization for a short period of time of social media ads. And suddenly people's social media feeds were full of stuff that wasn't relevant for them. Makeup ads for people that wouldn't wear makeup, beer ads for people that didn't drink beer. Suddenly, people felt that they were getting a poor experience because those ads were not personalized. That jarred. Well, we're seeing that more and more now, whereby the consumer is going to expect a degree of personalization in communication. And I think if we really want to go blue sky thinking and think long term, we already have things like smart website content and personalized website content that can be built. If we want to really look long term, I think that expectation over time is going to come more and more prevalent. It's what we need to start thinking about further down the line. And again, these aren't things that we're necessarily going to fix overnight, but personalization, relevance, and that speed and simplicity are going to win in these markets. I think that's fundamentally important, and something that we need to remember. And it's what could give us a competitive edge as marketers, basically. So the more personalized and experience that we can give the customer, give the consumer of content, the bigger the competitive edge we're going to have in a challenging economic climate and a noisy marketplace. So do feel free to pop any questions in the chat. As I say, we're going to cover off, I believe, quite a few at the end, or feel free to send your messages privately into Bex and she'll review those. I'm going to do a quick rundown. Look, as I say, I teased with the guys earlier where I said, should I do a webinar where we do a minute on every product update and we'll do it in 200 minutes? And I thought, no, there's nothing going to be quite as captivating as whizzing through some of the biggest takeaways that might be of interest if either you're already using HubSpot or you're considering HubSpot and you're looking into HubSpot for the very first time. What are some of these updates? What is it that we're seeing? And forgive me if there are some that I'm not best suited to answer in terms of the granular specificity. I have members of the team that would be. If there's certain ones that you'd like to really dive into or you want to follow up or have a bigger conversation on, we can absolutely facilitate that. So Smart CRM, HubSpot product Smart CRM is now going to be available for standalone availability, which is interesting, but it's also accessible for those that are already HubSpot users and have certain hubs. It is AI powered. It unifies customer data from every touch point. And 83% of users are already saying that HubSpot unifies data better than enterprise tools. The biggest shift in terms of a lot of these updates and things that I'm going to go through with is that HubSpot is working very, very hard to unify as much as possible. We've talked for a long time about a single source of truth, but now we're looking, it's that times 100, it's looking at it as a single source of truth, ramped up to a level that it hasn't been before. And that's the direction that we're going, because we understand that modern busy sales and marketing teams are that very thing. They're busy and data can very quickly become messy or muddled or disorganized. And so more and more it's about unifying that and ultimately finding simplicity in the complexity. There you go. I made that up on the spot. Hope that makes sense. Operations Hub. If you're an Operations Hub customer or you've had Operations Hub, don't have a shock if you've woken up one day this week and you're now seeing it as Data Hub. It forms part of the rebrand and the repositioning, but also the evolution of that hub. The focus is now more heavily on transforming scattered data into actionable intelligence with AI-powered data management, and it creates a single source of truth, powers smarter reporting and AI insights. So Operations Hub as was, if any of you have that as part of your packages of hubs, is now firmly Data Hub. Yeah, if you want to dive into that in more depth, we can chat about that. Some lovely stuff in Marketing Hub that's going to really excite marketers. Again, in line with the loop model, in line with email campaigns and personalization, Marketing Hub is now developing AI-powered segmentation and personalization, which is super exciting. A bit of a throwaway comment, this second one, but something to consider. Again, if you had a shock, if Ops Hub is now Data Hub, lists are now referred to as segments. So Bex made a really valid point when she and I were chatting about this earlier, right, Bex? Didn't you say that if
It was,
customers were going on, even the language in terms of sending to lists, you're no longer sending to lists? Do you want to just touch
yeah,
on that?
I literally got some Teams messages and things kind of end
Mm,
of last week, start of this week, just saying that I've lost lists. Where have my lists gone? And because they're now called segments, it's exactly the same product, but it's called
yeah.
segments. So you might just notice there's little things and um, just kind of I think, click and see where they are. But lists was the big one for a lot of our clients this week.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So again, nothing to be too surprised by. That's just a reframing of that in line with the focus, which is now, as I say, on that kind of AI-powered personalization and sort of segmentation. There's now a studio. Now, this is super exciting because for us as an agency, for example, one of the previous challenges has been some of those kind of sign-off capabilities and ways of working in HubSpot in more of a draft type mode with sharing draft content prior to launch and that side of things. The new studio enables you to play an awful lot more as marketers, is my early understanding. And this is still in this kind of beta mode, so it's very early days, but there'll be some of those kind of sign-off capabilities and those abilities to work in studio prior to going live purely within Marketing Hub. Also, kind of referrals from AI sources, from answer engines is now showing and more clear in kind of traffic sources. So again, it's moving towards our data understanding so that if we're building reports within HubSpot, we can start to see the traffic that's being generated from answer engines and AI sources. It's really interesting because brands are starting to think much more forward thinking, as I say, about adapting their search strategy. And as an agency, you're going to hear it a lot more from us. We're going to be talking about AI optimization, generative engine optimization, answer engine optimization. It's all the type of language that we're going to start to be using because SEO has been, on the tongue of marketers now for years. And the exciting thing is that I'm excited because we are literally at the forefront of a generational shift now in terms of search. And so it creates a whole host of opportunity. And it's something that we need to start thinking about.
Just
Sales Hub.
sorry,
Sorry,
just to butt in there, but just on the
go for it.
studio part, as Dan said, it is in beta at the moment, so you can get that through your product updates, but it's basically going to be enhancing the campaigns. So I know a lot of clients I work with, marketers especially, use the campaigns tool quite heavily. So I do recommend that kind of jump into that product update if you can. But yeah, that's where that's going to sit, just to give a bit more context.
Yeah, thanks, Bex. There's a few of these things. If you go on the HubSpot website and there's a set of content around the product updates and things, it does kind of asterisk and highlight which are in that kind of early phase, mode for testing versus those that are sort of, I guess, launched and fully live. So, yeah, it's totally worth looking at that. Good. Right. From a Sales Hub perspective, now the interesting thing about Sales Hub, which is obviously tailored towards sales teams, and once we've got that marketing qualified lead, it tends to be where your sales team live. The movement is much more towards intelligent prospecting and smarter meetings. Well, what does that mean? Well, there's a lot around kind of the new meeting assistance functionality, which means that tasks around meetings can be automated. Meeting prep can be automated based on previous engagement and conversations. So if you're logging your meetings in HubSpot, if you're logging your customer interactions, telephone calls, meeting notes, for example. The best thing is if you've got, a meeting note integrator or you're getting all of that in there, AI is building out the outcomes of meetings. You can then use AI to formulate the prep for meetings within HubSpot as well. It's going to make sales teams far more efficient, especially in that sort of prospecting side of things, as well as further down the sales funnel. So there's an awful lot in Sales Hub, which is about what I would call operational efficiencies. That's super exciting. It tackles the challenges of where sales teams are, busy. There's a lot of demand. They're juggling plates. I'm a commercial director. I get it. You've got the early stage funnel, and you've got the middle, and you've got the end, and you're working on all of that from the sales side of things. So there's a lot there that's around operational efficiencies and how you can work a little bit smarter, not harder. I think it's going to take time for some individuals and teams to adopt some of this methodology. But I think that once we start to get the hang of it, you'll notice real tangible differences in terms of quality and also scale of output. We're doing well, folks. We're whizzing. We've got 5 minutes of all of this core insight from the conference. HubSpot was the first CRM tool to fully integrate with ChatGPT earlier this year. That's really exciting because it leverages ChatGPT's capabilities and OpenAI's capabilities to be able to do deep research and insight into your CRM, asking the right kind of questions, analyzing health, finding out the best tactics on what to do next, probing quite deep kind of data. There is now a connector with Gemini that's just been launched. So if you're a Gemini user or you want to use Gemini and connect it with HubSpot, great day for you because you can now do that. So that's really, really positive. There are also now, and again, this is very new, very early stage, AEO recommendations within HubSpot, which is super exciting. So for those of you who have perhaps had websites built in WordPress, there's things like Yoast SEO that are kind of plugins and things that you can have as part of that can give you a degree of recommendation or things to consider. They're now beginning to do AEO recommendations, so answer engine recommendations for optimization within HubSpot as well. So how can you apply some of these new ideas for your 2025 and 2026 strategy? I think you need to, as marketers, we need to, I should say, as marketers, start to adapt an AEO mindset alongside SEO. This language needs to become part of our day-to-day, and it's something that you're going to hear us talking a lot about as an agency. I put a thing out on LinkedIn yesterday, go and check it out, where I was talking a little bit about how, you know, the era of search has kind of moved on. It's not evolved, it's changed. We're now in a significant shift. So you know, that's kind of where we're moving to. Do have a little look at the loop, see if it works for you. I think it's a really strong tool, and a kind of tool model, I should say, and how to actually embrace and engage with AI and amplify your marketing as a marketing individual or a marketing team. So consider how you can apply that in your organization for growth. If you're HubSpot users, start to think about using Smart CRM and Data Hub to unify that customer data and start trying to understand or talk to agencies such as ourselves about how you can start to personalize and amplify your content at scale using AI. And so ultimately, you want to leverage AI for segmentation, approvals, and reporting. And as I say, in the long term, that expectation for personalization is going to be really, really important. I jumped in a Waymo, one of these driverless cabs, last weekend, and even that was a relatively personal experience where it greeted us by name and there was no driver in the car. I mean, it's unbelievable, you know, where we're moving to with this stuff. And yet I had this personal experience. You know, judge that how you may in terms of the impact of AI on our day-to-day lives. But as I say, personalization is key. So finally, before we open the floor to any questions, what are the predictions? I think with regards to HubSpot, but also marketing at large, you can expect a lot more kind of AI integrations, AI connectors, AI tools. Agentic working is the future. It sounds quite 007. In principle, it's about leveraging AI as I say, a partner in your day-to-day life as to how you're going to be the best version of yourself in your role. And that's just something to consider as individuals and as an organization. And if you might have policies on that and the adoption of AI agents. Continued focus on personalization at scale. Again, personalization is an expectation, not an option. HubSpot unifying even more data across its ecosystem, single source of truth. The rise of large language models and answer engines for search. That's only going to get more. It might keep evolving, but that's not going to change. And then U to the power of AI is a takeaway that kind of resonated with me, I guess fundamentally in terms of amplifying what we're doing and looking at how we can use AI to scale up, empower ourselves as an individual and empower ourselves as an organization. The final thing I would say with all of this, if you haven't got it already, do think about your own AI adoption, your own policies on that, your own strategy on that. You might want to put some confines around how team members utilize AI, but also empower them so that they're using it in an effective way. And on that, 30 minutes on the button. Let's open it up for any questions. Bex, I don't know if we've had any come through during the session.
We have, yes, and actually very relevant to what you just said about companies and their own AI policies. Ruth's put a question in the chat about how HubSpot are going to govern AI. Obviously, companies do have their own guidelines, and is the option to be on or off. Now, it has, to my knowledge, there's always been the option to kind of use it as you wish.
Yeah,
And the amount of information that you put in is entirely up to you.
yeah,
HubSpot will be using AI in the background for things like Copilot, its own
yeah.
agent. But did they mention any of that at Inbound, Dan? Is there any extra information that's brought up?
Um, it was touched upon. If you go online, you can see obviously HubSpot has in the public domain its own kind of privacy policy, AI policy, ethical AI adoption piece. That's all in there. So you can see all of that and dig into that through HubSpot's website, and all of that is available and kind of in the public domain. With regards to some of the integrators and the third-party stuff, that's things that you need to look into potentially and consider. If you already have a policy about what information you want to share with ChatGPT, for example, what information you want to pump into ChatGPT. Ultimately, these LLMs, as they're called, large language models like ChatGPT, they're third party. They should be treated as third party tools and software in the same way that you would embrace any software within the organization. So you need to consider what you're kind of sharing with that. And I guess there's two sides to consider. One is your company's ethical approach to AI in terms of what's real, what isn't, what's powered by AI, what's influenced by AI. And then there's the kind of the data sharing aspect of it, and they're kind of two separate things. So I think it's worth digging into that and looking at it more in relation to your own organization. Yeah, and what your own policies are on that, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Yeah, I have just popped in the chat for anybody that's looking for it, a link to the knowledge base article, which is basically the trust center for HubSpot. So some bedtime reading if anyone wants to read that back, but it probably we only had half an hour, so I can't go through that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Jeanette has just asked if you're using ChatGPT to get into AI recommendations and summaries on Google, do you need to switch on improve the model for everyone in settings? So that's more of a
That is.
GPT's question, I think, than a HubSpot one. Jeanette, is that right?
I think so.
Do you want to just give a little bit more context on that, Janine? Jeanette, sorry, just so that we understand. So you're looking at in the
So
actual. So are you using a paid version of ChatGPT or?
yes, yes, yes. So what we are doing, we asking questions about our area of business, and we ask about, can you recommend somebody in this part of the England or UK? And if they don't recommend our company, we'll say, oh, how about Britannic? And then
Yeah,
ChatGPT goes back and says, oh yes, and gives really, really good answers.
yeah,
And
yeah.
this is helping us to get into the AI summaries. So I'm just wondering if we need to have this
Okay,
thing switched on.
I understand now. That makes total sense. So, so to give you an idea, LLM, large language models, are learning all the time, right? Damesh Shah, who I touched upon, who is the CTO and co-founder of HubSpot, the initial founder, he put a really interesting thing out on LinkedIn, I think in the last 24 hours actually, about how one large language model was starting to evolve the clarity of its output and the answers that it was giving back to users by even giving AI, its own AI tool, a kind of a point system. So it was getting this pat on the back, right? For like when it said something positive or when it said something good. So yeah, even AI likes getting thrown a sweet or two when it does a good job, right? Now, these tools, as I say, the key theme in that is that these tools are always learning. So all that is much like with Microsoft, or if you are with GA4, for example, when you're sharing troubleshooting reports back with the tool, by keeping that setting on, it's kind of taking your information, you're sharing your information more with the platform to be able to improve its service offering. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to improve its service offering for you as an individual in that moment. So it's a form of privacy setting whereby making it better for everyone is kind of selling it to you to say, can we take everything that you're giving with us, and can we take the output from these conversations to help improve our platform and improve our software for everyone? If you want to work in a more secure and closed-ended way, then you can keep that setting switched off, but it shouldn't affect how what you're getting or how you're engaging with ChatGPT, if that makes sense. It's just that
Yeah,
it's about how you're sharing the outcome from your search habits, if you see what I mean.
yeah, thank you.
No problem. Does that answer your question?
It does, yes.
Thanks, Jeanette.
Perfect. And just
Fab.
one more that we had earlier on from Alexis. She was just asking about whether all of the things that you're mentioning, the product updates and things, are going to be available on the CRM subscriptions or on paid. I did answer this in the chat very briefly, but it is going to be very much a case-by-case basis. A lot of the marketing tools are going to be in the pro subscription.
Yeah.
The smart CRM that Dan touched on, as I say, it's going to be bringing more and more in. So I would, for anyone that's kind of thinking what is available, again, I'd direct you to the product updates and see what's available to you within there. And if there's anything that Dan said today that you're really interested in, think will work for your business, obviously we can open that conversation as to whether it's going to be viable, and that's
Yeah, don't hesitate to drop us a message privately or pop a note in the chat if there's any key themes or anything from today that you'd like to you know, find out more about, or, you know, don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn. We're big LinkedIners, love to take the conversation forward on there. You know, so if you've enjoyed this session, don't hesitate to let us know. We'd love to know the feedback. And if there's things that you'd like to find out more or dig in more to, we're going to consider a couple of focus sessions as well. It could be on the loop, it could be on agentic AI, it could be on amplification through AI for content. So there's so much to dig into, and yeah, I hope you found this whistle stop tour to be beneficial. Good. Any final questions? We'll give it 10 seconds to see if anybody does have any pressing questions they'd like to ask. No. Fab. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your. Oh, we've had a lovely thank you as well in the chat. We've had a maholo from Alexis Rago. I hope I pronounced your surname. Thank you for that, Alexis. Brilliant. If anybody's got any further questions, anything they'd like to discuss, anything they'd like to dig into, thanks for that, Alexis. Really glad you found it beneficial about what you might have missed at Inbound. It's a great conference. Check out Grow, which is HubSpot's European conference, which is coming later this year in November. Myself, I'll be down there. Bex will be down there. We're going to take Ewan down there. If you want to grab a coffee, talk all things HubSpot, or you want to look into Grow, tickets are available. I believe Louis Theroux is giving the keynote talk, which will be interesting. So yeah, check that one out. But listen, for the meantime, best of luck with your marketing and even your AI future. And yeah, if you have any further questions, queries, or you'd like to dig in more, just give us a shout. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.